I'm Melina. I'm an ecologist. I did just come into this by complete accident. I was just starting out by helping. I literally went out to the ARC groups out in Walgan, or we started in Lithgow. I saw what they were feeding and I was absolutely devastated because obviously people wanted to do the right thing, but they didn't have any idea what they were doing. Yes. Walgan in particular is a particularly strategic area. There were a lot of threatened species out there. The valleys down off the Walgan Gap, if anyone knows where I mean.
Yeah. Yep.
Out there you've got koalas, you've got brush-tailed rock wallabies, you've got your greater gliders, your squirrel gliders, you've got your region honey eaters. So if we're putting out bad foods, what we're basically saying is you're going to have 4 masses of extinction is what we're basically saying. You've had your extinctions because of the fires, then you've got your second wave of extinctions of the animals that survived the fires but have burnt feet. That wave is over for most places. We've been through a lot of those areas and you'll be finding the animals that basically were coming off the mountains into the valleys were trying to find safety, but they were already burnt. They were trying to find food. You'd find these animals with crows hanging around them, waiting for them to die. We saved a couple, but as it got more and more further out, you got to the point where you collect them, but you just couldn't save them. There's nothing you could do. So that's the second wave of extinction. The third wave of extinction, in all honesty, was going to be from starvation because we can't get out to a lot of places because there's a lot of restrictions from all the councils, Crown Land, national parks, whoever it is, private owners. And then the fourth wave of extinction is going to end up being from people feeding the wrong foods. If you give them a part of what they eat, they're still going to be deficient. But we're talking about immunocompromised species because they are burnt, they are dehydrated, they've got infections, and then the bacteria in their stomach starting to fail because they don't have the right food. So if you then go, I'm going to give you a bait ball which is made from peanut butter, oats, and honey, you're going to kill them. As much as people want to do the right thing, you can't do that. We need to start thinking about when do we need to pull back out? How do we train other areas? Like we need to get people down into the south who are trained, into the alpine areas that are trained, into other states that are trained. We're just a very small area. And it's just gone viral from there. That's good. Anyway, so National Parks has developed a table very similar to what I developed. It's available online at National Parks website because this has been through at least 50 different people. It's been through zoologists from the Taronga Zoo, through wildlife veterinarians from Sydney University, through LLS, through National Parks, through threatened species experts. So everyone's applied over it. So we don't all agree. But it's because there's obviously what people feed in care and there's what you feed in a zoo and a sanctuary was very, very different to what you feed a wild animal that's immunocompromised. So we've had to come up with the safest options in small quantities. This is still constantly changing because every single day we're coming up with new information. You have to go into an area and you have to find out what species you're going to have. The way to probably do that is, do you guys ever heard of Atlas, National Parks and Wildlife Atlas? It is a online free, you can look up any area on a map. You can just be like, I want to look up that national park, I want to look up that council area, I want to look up that street. You can look up that council area if you like, it doesn't matter, it's really easy. You can ask it to give you threatened species records or you can ask it to give you common species records, both plant, animals, insects, whatever you like. That's probably the easiest and best way to do it. That's what would have been there previous to the fires. And you just want to hope and assume that they're still there. So you could go to that place and be like, because if you don't have an ecologist, you'd be like, I don't know what's here. Go to that, find out what species you got, and then you start to feed for those species in hope that that's the way it is. Number one rule, the hay is actually probably a better food for a lot of animals because it's more natural, but the biggest issue is it spreads weeds. We only do this on the edge of paddocks or private property. We cannot put this in council land, we cannot put this in national parks. Is everyone okay with that? It is definitely a great food source. A lot of animals prefer it because it's a bit more natural. These are your macropod pellets. Now, unfortunately, a lot of the original macropod pellets are quite large. A lot of the larger mammals, even themselves, won't eat it. They're made for roos, a lot of roos won't eat it. Some roos will eat it when they're starving. What we've discovered is, so that was the Ambo brand, and a lot of the other brands are like this as well. But the Lachna Mills brand is a lot smaller. So by having a mix, you can get your larger macropods and your smaller mammals, marsupials. Does that make sense?
And what's that last one? What are the names again?
So the smaller one is the Lachna Mills. I can show you the packet if you want. Do you want to grab that out for me tomorrow? It's in the back of the ute there. And the other one was ambo, but there's like, basically if you look up macropod pellets or roux pellets, you're going to probably end up with this much larger pellet.
This is what we're getting in, and this is what we will be supplying.
Yep. So tomorrow is like our Blackheath hub.
Okay.
I am Blackheath, Clarence, Canimbla, Lithgow. We're getting the food supplies
tomorrow-
in. And just on that note, that's only meadow hay. We don't supply any other hay. That's all I'm
No
getting
lucerne
in.
hay, no oaten hay, no none of those other ones.
Yep.
They don't digest it very well. And on top of that, it's lower nutrients and it spreads weeds worse than the meadow hay.
And lucerne is not a grass; it's a legume.
Yep. Legumes are not good for your macropods. Like, you want to start thinking about your species as, do they eat grass? Do they eat leaves? Are they browsers? Browsers are things like your deers, your wombats, your wallaroos. Does everyone know the difference between a wallaroo and a kangaroo? Because they're actually not the same species. Yep. They can eat more things. If they're a browser, their stomach will handle a lot more things. That's why we want to try and separate food stations. So again, you can feed your macropods, your wallabies, and your wombats this. Wombats will probably eat this as well, but we are trying to stick more towards your more natural rabbit pellets. So don't get guinea pig feed. If you can get the rabbit ones that are organically sourced. Do you know what I mean by that?
Yeah. What about alpaca? I've heard alpaca.
Alpaca has too many things in it that we don't know.
Yeah,
You've got to look at what's in it.
You got to look what's in it. Okay.
Yeah.
If you're using horse foods, okay, if you don't have your macropod food, you can use things called, can you get the EcoShy that's at the back there? You can use cool temperature horse ones, so meaning like not the ones that heat them up. Like anything that has molasses in it or oats, it's a big no-no. Can't process it, and it's like feeding sugar to a baby. Like, you know what happens when you feed sugar to a baby.
And these are just pellets, this one.
Yep. So if you can't get a hold of the roux pellets, you go for the Econocool or the Cool Shine.
Cool Shine's got a mix of.
Yep. A mix of things. Otherwise, you can go for the macropod muesli. That's another one you can get. I haven't found it yet, but apparently it's possible. Does that make sense, guys? Any questions on that so far? Because it is quite complicated, isn't it?
Where do you get it? Where have you guys been getting it?
You're probably going to find it really hard to source it because we're stripping it off.
Yeah.
Okay.
What you guys want to do
doing
is
Blackheath?
find the hubs. So there's a hub in Lithgow, there's a hub in Blackheath, there's a hub in Clarence.
And I'm
that's through-
all of them.
Yeah.
Is that through
so-
Animal Rescue Collective? Hub?
Yes.
That's the one in Lithgow, yep.
Yep, that's me.
Yep. No macropod pellets, then you go for your horse. With the horse ones, it is a huge no-no to get the ones that have rice pollard. There's a lot of horse foods out there where they want to fatten the horses. So I think it has a rice brand or a rice pollard. Big no. Okay. You will kill them. It causes there something to swell, and then they won't be able to absorb nutrients.
Yeah.
So that the wombats can get food, I'm suggesting that you either put it at the very entry or down in the hole, particularly if you're going to use things like your sweet potato. I don't particularly like it, but it is okay. It's a basically wombats will eat the roots of veggies, so this is okay for them, but it's not okay for your kangaroos. Wallaroos, because they're browsers, yes, they will eat it, but how do you separate a kangaroo food station from a wallaroo's food station? So it's not that they can't eat it, but you just can't stop them, the wrong species, eating it. So if you're going to get these, you cut them up, you put them down the hole.
Why is it not good for us?
Your vegetables that you eat that are sweet, they're high sugar.
Yep. So the roos can't eat it because they're grass eaters. They eat the seeds of grass and they only eat grass, and their stomach can't process anything else. They don't eat roots. They don't eat leaves. They don't eat like sometimes they might eat a little bit of the bark on the tree, but that's more to coat their stomach if they're feeling a bit gross.
Like cats eating grass.
Well, a dog does it as well if they're feeling sick. Yeah. Okay, so if you're going to use these guys, chop them up, put them down the wombat hole only, so the roos can't get them. The wombats will eat this stuff if there's anything left over, but if you've got a mob of roos, they're going to eat the food before the wombats get to it. Our biggest issue with the wombats currently is they're fighting triple things. They've got a parasite called mange, which is amplified tenfold by the fact that they're dehydrated and starving. So the way you're going to know if the wombat population in general has that, because not all populations have it, but it's spreading. The same as like chlamydia did through the koalas and the tumours through the Tasmanian devils. It spreads because they're all very social creatures. Basically, one wombat will basically have a tea party with the three wombat holes down the street kind of thing. They all go in and out of each other's wombat holes and spread the disease. So if they have mange, we need to start treating the mange, because if you don't treat the mange, they can't get, doesn't matter what they eat, they will starve to death.
You will know because they'll be out in the daylight.
Yeah. The first thing you're going to start noticing is the longer they are out feeding in the daytime, because that's not their natural behaviour, that means that they are suffering either from over parasitic attacks. Like one of the guys I found, which I took to Taronga Zoo, he had 500 paralysis ticks on him. That's number one. That'll stop any nutrients he eats. He doesn't go to him, it goes to them. On top of that, he had mange. So that's another parasite, which it's like a flea thing that burrows into your skin. And if they're in their later stages, they get all these secondary sores and they get maggots in them, and then they die a very slow and painful death. Right. So you want to treat the mange, and then that will help their immune system get up, which will then the ticks will drop off naturally.
So at this point, we need to get a vet assistance for that.
So what I just did in Mulgan yesterday, and it's on my Facebook page, all the photos and stuff like that. This is an example of what we do. You don't need these frames. You can get, does anyone know the wire that you use for a taut fence? Like the ones you can tighten? Yeah. They're very flexible, they're very bendy. Get some of that. All this is the old real estate signs. Cork flute? Yeah. That's a milk bottle cap. They're so simple to make, and this is a couple of zip ties. Yeah. What you do is you put the chemical in here, which is, that's the part that we need to get permission for, and only people who are registered either with LLS or veterinarians or possibly wires can do that. So you guys can't do that yourself, but if you need to report if you have mange in the wombats in your area.
And who do we report to?
Well, it depends on if wires would you prefer to do?
Yeah, I mean, you can ring up wires if you don't hear back. I mean, you can literally approach anyone at that point. Yep. Just anyone that's closest and is going to help the soonest, basically.
It depending. If you're in the Blue Mountains, I would probably say you could even tell the hubs, in all honesty, would that be, and then they could spread the word either to someone like myself or to someone like Claire or Sarah Price.
I don't know who to tell. Ask someone who might.
Yeah, because the word gets spread really quickly.
Okay. Yeah. First signs of mange are eating in the daytime when they shouldn't be. The second thing you might see is they have striations down their fur, like they have these lines where the colour changes on their fur. That's the early stages of mange. Third and fourth stages is if you can walk up to them and they don't walk away, that's pretty late stage mange, because they get what they call muddy eye. They're not blind, but they get like infections in their eyes so they can't see, and they get infections in their ears so they can't hear you. If I'm here and he's over there, he's pretty late stages. Yeah. You can still save them, but that means it's getting to the point where it's almost euthanasia time. Yeah? So that's a big thing with the wombats, is you put these on their basically the entry to their holes. Sometimes, because their holes are all different, you can't just do one standard fits all kind of thing. You might have to cut these shorter. You might have to hang these like this and have them over the top like this instead. Yeah? And it's as simple as once a week, whoever's allowed to legally use the chemical puts the chemical in here once a week. Yep. And then it's literally like frontline for your dogs. Right. Okay. Yeah? Goes down their back, treats them. They then roll around in their den and they treat their den, and then if any of their friends come over for tea, then they get treated too. Oh, well. Yeah, basically they rub up against each other and they spread the good stuff. Yeah. Problem is, if you don't keep doing it once a week, it's going to treat them temporarily and then they'll just get it back again.
And how long do you have to treat for?
Depends on how bad the mange population is, but at this point in time, somewhere between 6 weeks to 3 months. But if you think about it, if you say you get an area, so Walgan, I'm going to train 4 people. If every person goes once a month, one time only, so they go 3 times in total. It's done. Yeah. And once they're set up, all you're doing is you walk along, pour some stuff in, and off you go. It's really easy. Yeah. It's not hard.
No.
And that will get to the point so that if we'll stop them from starving. Essentially, particularly now you're getting food coming through. On top of that, the reason why we're here, guys, I don't know if you can see it through the distance. Can you see all that brown through the distance there? We're having what we call a waves of dieback. They don't know the basis or the reasoning yet. The way I like to describe it is kind of like the bleaching of the corals. Too many stress events, too many high heat events, and it's causing this massive dieback. And we're not sure yet whether they will return. If they do, it's great. But if they don't, well, what are we going to do?
It's pretty serious when eucalypts start to do that.
It's not just happening in individual trees. If we go from the walk into the valley over there, you'll look out, or if you go to the lookouts at the top of Hargrave Lookout, you'll see massive waves of it going through the entire valley.
50 metres here, it's every species.
Every species is dead. It's not just ukes. It's all levels. So we've got massive dieback, but there's no research into it yet.
Wow.
Yeah, but essentially that means no food.
There's a lot of areas around Canimbla looking like
Yeah, I know.
that.
Canimbla is much worse affected than here. Canimbla is not getting the rain. Like, we've had some rain here. Like, I was here a week ago. That grass was not there. It was dirt. So obviously we're getting some feed in here. So maybe in a few weeks we might actually be able to pull out of here. Yeah, depending on how the rain goes. If it keeps getting hotter and the rain stops again, we have to keep going. If it keeps raining, we pull out. Because at the end of the day, you don't want to humanise the animals.
No.
Yeah.
You want them to be wild. You can't feed them forever. You just want to do it for a short period because it's not their real food.
Yeah.
So talking about food, can we talk about carrots?
Look,
Yes.
okay. The big problem with the carrot issue was that they are high in sugar. It really depends on which species you're giving it to. Now, that ABC story with the sweet potatoes and the carrots out of the helicopter, that was only for rock wallabies in isolated populations.
Yeah.
Nobody could get into them.
Yep.
They're in very secret locations because they're a very critically endangered, threatened species. There was no water for them. They're using the carrots for water. They're high water content.
Highly emergency situation.
Yeah, it was
a needs
they die or we give them this.
Yeah, that's right.
It's not what you want to give them,
Yeah.
but because you couldn't get the water into these animals the same as we can in these areas, that was their water.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Sweet potato was more their food, but that was also strategic as well because the more dominant animals were eating the carrots because they're like, yay, candy. The less dominant animals weren't getting any of the carrots, so they ended up with the sweet potato.
So water's really essential. How far apart should we be placing our water stations
It depends on your species.
on your species? Okay.
Yeah?
Yep.
That's why we have these tables.
Yep.
And it goes through your species here. So your macropods and things like that, they're going to gather wherever the water source, if there's a dam. Like the reason the wallaby populations and the roo populations sort of went up was because dams were created on farms. They're all like, woohoo, water, grass, right there. They're the only species I would suggest to ever feed in the paddock areas. Any other species should be in the bush.
Yes. Okay.
You don't want to be in the super burnt area, but you don't want to be on the edge. Predators hunt on the edge.
I know.
I have got 2 books with me. I have one that's called Tracks and Scats. If you want to take photos of what carnivore poo looks like, so your wild dogs, your cats, and even your quolls. Now, quolls are native, and we don't want them to be hurt because they're critically endangered as well, and they're an essential part of the ecosystem. But you don't want to have an open smokers board for the quolls. Like, you don't want them coming and going for their takeaway dinner.
Yeah.
They need to work for their dinner. Yeah? Whereas if you put your food stations down where there's carnivore scats, you're just leaving them out to the carnivores are going to come along and just take everything.
Yeah.
There's no point feeding those animals, they're dead anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're saying about rotation too.
Must rotate because predators are very smart. They're going to learn where the food stations and water stations are. You must
Also
keep moving them
hunters.
around.
Yes.
We've got people out there
Yep.
taking pot shots at them.
Yeah, that's
And
the
there's arsehole hunters. Yep. Sorry, am I allowed to say that word on?
I can think of worse
Pretty much what
ones.
they are.
Yeah, that's another story. Some landowner, you got to talk to the landowners as well. Like, you cannot just go onto private property. You must communicate with the landholders, and it's better to get them involved because then they could do the food stations for you, so you can go somewhere else. You help them set up. You move on.
Yeah.
But as long as they know what to do and how to do it, but make sure that they are on the side of green. Well, they don't even have to be green. Like this, at Walgan Valley, I met like 20 different neighbours yesterday, and they're all like, "Can I help? Can I help? Can I help? Can I help?" But normally they're all farmers or electricians or whatever it is that they are. They work at the coal mine, but they don't want to see their wildlife dying either.
Yeah.
But then there are people down there that are people with shooting licenses. So you got to make sure you know who they are. Anyway, sorry, where was I? I'm getting sidetracked.
Finished
We
with
were talking about carrots.
Yeah.
Carrots, it's like a dirty word.
Yep.
Is it one of those things where it's just safer, just
Not
keep
to.
it out?
I think it's safer just to not do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And just say no.
Just say no. Yeah. Say no carrots.
Yeah.
Probably better off. Yeah?
Because that's essentially what
We're saying.
they're
That's
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah.
That unfortunate ABC story was they didn't highlight rock wallabies.
Yeah.
It just went
General
feeding
population.
nature.
I mean,
We're making relationships with landowners who they're back onto the national parks, and we're trying to go in that way. And I'm also highlighting strategic locations, particularly for threatened species, because they're obviously our common species have a risk of going extinct too, but our threatened species were already threatened. So you think of what they're facing. We've got to get in to help them. Cool. So that's your macropod, your wallaroos. This is your wombat. Then you start looking at your boreal stuff. No fruits or seeds should go on the ground ever. Now, You've got to be careful with these things. There could be stuff in this that the birds just don't like holding it together. You got to get natural stuff. Natural wild bird feed has small and large. You want to get ones that have less sunflower seed in it because they're not great for them. But a lot of them unfortunately do have it in there. If they eat a little bit of it, it's okay. It's kind of like us eating avocado.
Yeah.
You don't eat like 20 avocados, but if you eat one avocado, it's technically healthy for you. Yeah. Like too much oil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And basically, the animals go for that because it's high calorie.
Yeah, high calorie.
Get carbs in.
If you've got one of these, it's separate. Like everything needs to be separate. Yeah.
Yeah.
We need to put something underneath it.
And you need to
stop
put something under it to collect it. So I'm trying to come up with a style system where you even just use the green shopping bags.
Yeah.
Just kind of hang it underneath to catch the, as they're tearing at it, the parrot's going for it. Anything they don't eat will just drop into the bag.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you can put like a simple, basic my Mitre 10 or Bunnings tarp underneath it.
Yeah.
Put the rocks around the side to hang it down. That's right.
Whatever we can get.
Yep.
But anyway, stripping shelves.
Yep.
It's
And
basically
if we
to
can't
stop
get it,
introduced
what do you
species.
recommend?
Yeah,
plants.
this has got sorghum seed in it, which is an introduced noxious weed.
So I'm getting
Yeah.
a bunch
Or they're
of
what they
these
call it now, a weed of significance. They change the name every 5 minutes.
Noxious.
Wait,
Well,
describes
it's
it
not called
well.
noxious anymore. It's called weed of
yeah,
significance.
I know, but it's
So always put something underneath it to trap it. Otherwise, you've got. I mean, if you're in your home, place at home, and you want to feed the birds, one of these is fine as long as you constantly change it and put it up high, away from predators and everything else. If you're going to feed your carnivorous birds, make sure they're very separate to the seed-eating birds.
And don't be feeding animals and let your cat out, guys.
Yeah, no cats. No cats. No cats.
Don't know how many people put feed out and then take photos of the cat in the backyard.
Keep the cat indoors, particularly now. Like, just don't let them out for now. Like, maybe in a few months when things settle down, but they're one of our biggest killers.
Yeah.
And on top of that, when your cat becomes feral, like, they're trained killing machines. I love cats, but you don't want them eating your wildlife. So this would be just your backyard, but if you're going to have them out in nature, you can use things similar to this, but not this one in particular. This is a water feeder. It's simple. It literally like just comes on here and you fill it up, and it has little holes, and you hang it up in the tree. That way, it's closed. Other things can't get in the top. Things can't get trapped in the top because a lot of the other poultry feeders have holes here. You think about if a little bird gets stuck in there, insects get stuck in there, little skinks, geckos.
Yes.
They can't get out. Then they're going to die in there, and then the food's going to be horrible anyway because there's a dead animal in there.
Sorry, you mentioned 2 different sorts of seeds.
Sorry.
Is there 2 different sorts of seeds if we can't get something
If you
like
can't
this?
get that, if you're getting loose seed,
Yep,
then you can either put it in a closed feeder.
yep,
Yeah.
yep. And what do you recommend for that? Like a wild bird
I've got-
seed mix?
Yeah,
Stalks
it
of
must
wild
be
bird
a wild
seed.
bird feed mix that has small and large. So for small and large parrots and finches. Finches eat the small stuff. Everyone's forgetting about our little brown jobs.
No,
Yeah,
we're not.
no,
We're not.
Yep. Now talking about possums, gliders. So you got to think there is a difference. Koalas and greater gliders are in the same category. They don't. Well, obviously koalas eat leaves. Everyone knows that they eat leaves. Greater gliders are exactly the same. They only eat leaves. The reason why the Conimbula population was dying was because they weren't getting any nutrients from the dieback, like the trees in drought. They'd got no nutrients in them. They weren't getting water. They weren't getting the
All the
nutrients.
tree's doing is trying to survive itself.
Yeah.
So, it's not
So they
giving
weren't
out
getting
nutrition.
anything from it, and that's why they were dying and falling from the trees.
Have we had an event like this with the dieback in previous droughts?
Not here. We haven't, but in other areas, like not the same, but something a little bit similar. But the animals the trees had to be under severe stress for it to happen.
And did it come back? Has it recovered?
The only other place I ever saw it was the Southern Highlands, and no, those trees never came back. They're all dead. Like they were more paddock trees. So when trees are grouped together, they protect each other. When they're single paddock trees that are quite old, they survive for quite a long time. But the radio waves have an impact. The drought has an impact. Then the what do you call them? The parasitic.
Oh, yeah, the
Mistletoe.
Yeah.
Mistletoe takes away their energy, and then if they get larvae attacks and then they get disease attacks, like it just all piles on top. Like our wildlife and our nature is resilient, but only to a point. Like it can only take so much.
That's right.
Once you isolate a tree, you've taken away everything and
Yeah.
you've compromised its immune system.
Yeah. Think of them just like animals.
I
Okay.
did see them up at Toowoomba on the range up there, similar to this. Ukes were just disappearing, you know. There's
Okay, so there is still argument over the fruits. Currently we are still suggesting red apples, pears and melon. So your rock melon, your honeydew melon, I'm not so sure about watermelon, but you might be able to use it. I don't know.
My ducks love it.
Yeah. But that's an incomplete diet on its own for the fruit eating species. So basically any of your species that would eat flowers or fruit, like you know how you get your Port Jackson figs down in Sydney and stuff like that, or even just like your lily pillies and things like that. That's a berry, yeah. Those sorts of species will eat fruit, but on top of that, they need to eat insects and they need to eat nectar. Otherwise, they end up being deficient.
Yeah.
So there's a really good example in America where they had a massive drought and their cattle egrets had no food. So all the locals decided to feed them crickets. Now, the problem with the crickets is it was only a partial part of their diet. They then had babies and all their babies started falling out of the sky because they had no calcium. So all their babies died. So that's the flow-on effect of bad foods.
Yeah.
We don't want that to happen here. Feed them a complete diet. So when I'm feeding my fruit-based species, I put a combination of my insect, so insect ring powder, so insect powder. There's many different forms of this. You put 1 scoop of this, and then you get your nectar, which is there's a few forms of this as well. There's one called Harmony, and you can get it in any pet store, and it's for lorikeets and honey eaters, I think, from memory.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's the easiest one to find.
3 scoops of this, 1 scoop of this, so one insect, 3 scoops of nectar. Put it on top of the fruit, add water, mix it around with your finger or stick if you don't want to get dirty. Make a nice paste. Yep.
Okay.
And who knows where that must go? Where do you need to put it? Anyone? Anyone? Anyone?
Oh, in trees.
In trees.
Trees, yeah.
Up a tree, yes, not on the ground, please. I'm trying to come up with new designs of what we can do that's easy. These are like $5 from Bunnings. The only thing is I don't know yet because this seed's got this hole here, that's where the water goes. I'm wondering what impact that's going to have on the fruit. But I want to trial this to see how it goes, so that's one option. I'm using these are recyclable bamboo bowls from Woolworths. You find them in the party section, but you've got to drill a hole in them. And then you just get a bit of wire and a step ladder to get to your branches. Be safe, please be safe. I don't want to be responsible for broken ankles. The best way to do these when you hang them up is you need to have 2 branches. You need one branch like this and one branch like this. So you put the wire over this branch and then the bowl sits on this branch so that the gliders and the possums or whatever you got can come in and eat it. Yeah?
Yeah.
If you just have it hanging, they're going to jump on the bowl, the whole thing's going to end up on the ground.
Yeah.
Yep. So the same as can you see the water station up there, how it's hanging over that branch?
Yeah.
Same thing applies. Anything arboreal, you hang it on a branch higher and then you lower it down to sit on the branch below. Yeah? That makes sense? Any questions on that one?
How do you feel that?
Yeah.
Oh, so we'll get to that in a sec, but we've set them up super easy. They're lower and high. It's a pulley system. You lower it to the ground, you fill it with water, you pull it back up again, tie it on the tree.
So, but
Done.
we don't have to climb the tree.
No.
No.
But you were going to be the first person.
Yeah, you're going to go climb that tree. We're going to use step ladders for the food ones. This forest is a bit harder because the first branches are higher.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we use a step ladder. If you're in other different types of forest where the original, like say kind of mallee forest, do you know what I mean by mallee?
About where the ground's unstable because of the bushfire.
The ground's unstable. Well, you shouldn't be putting them in fire areas. You put them on the edge of fire areas, but not in the fire area. Does that make sense? So even in every burnt area I've ever been to, there's still little tiny pockets of green refuge, like tiny bits.
Okay.
So you look for the
If it's burnt out, there's no animals there anyway.
But we've been seeing it.
I have too.
You'll see them travel through, or if there's dens that are unburnt, that must mean you've got crown that's not burnt. Have you got crown that's not burnt?
No, we've got a group of roos, 7 of them that are it's close to a house where they have some green lawn, but they're not going to the house that I've seen. They're right in the middle of the burnt bush.
And
So what are we talking, like roos or wallabies here?
Roos.
So in the daytime, particularly when it's hot, they're going to be in every shady possible part.
They're not. They're out looking for food.
So
which is really
normally
weird, right?
if there's green grass at that house, they will be in there at dawn and dusk eating. When you're not there.
Okay.
They feed at dawn and dusk.
Okay.
The rest of the time they are in the shade, chilling out or mucking around if they're young ones.
Playing cards.
Playing cards, yeah.
or on their phone.
Yeah, or on their phone, yeah. Sorry, where am I at now?
The roos.
Yeah, roos, the grass is where they're going to eat. don't set up any stations near roads. Roads is bad.
Yeah.
We're getting most of the animals we're pulling in now are from roadkill.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, there are people apparently putting it along Bell's Line of road, fairly close to the road from what...
You must put it at least
Yeah.
200 metres in from the road. In that respect, if it's only nothing but burnt and it's just macropod stuff, you can put it in. They will go in there because they hang in those areas for shade or whatever's remaining of shade.
Yeah.
So if the only option you got for green grass is the road, do not do that. Put it in the road, like 200 metres in. If you're dealing with this sort of property where, say, the fires come up to here, but then you've got a paddock down there, I'd be 50 metres off the paddock but within the green area.
Yeah.
So that you take away the predator issue.
Yep.
And look for predator poos, basically.
Yeah.
No predator poos, it's okay. The other thing is, don't put the food down on top of other poo. You spread disease. Like, the macropods have horrible diseases that they can spread. And if you think about it, like, you wouldn't put your own food on top of your own toilet, would you?
No. Makes
Move
sense.
it, and so you basically have to keep moving it, because once they have eaten in that area, there will be poo.
Yeah.
So move it along. Yep. Same goes with all the birds and everything else. Keep moving things along. Every species known to man has some sort of disease that can spread.
Yep.
So just keep moving it, both for predator reasons and for disease reasons. We've done that. Is there any questions on how to kind of hang this sort of stuff, or it's pretty self-explanatory?
We had some concerns for possums and things getting tangled in the wires. So is there a particular way that you do it so that we've got no sharp edges or...
Well, I twist these back on top of themselves.
Okay.
Hang on, where's my wire cutters? Like this is, I usually wait till I know how long the tree is first.
Yep, sure.
I don't even know if I can cut this. Oh, yeah, I did cut it. Literally. So normally I'd have one side done, that's already twisted around, and then twist it back on itself so it's in a safe position, not going to hurt them. So that's going to, usually I'd have that so that sits just below the bowl, so it's not going to hurt them. Obviously fruit, nectar, whatever you call it, insects mixed in there. You've got your branch ready to go, put that over and you just literally twist it back. Same thing again. Twist it back on itself so that's on the outside and sits down right beside the bowl.
And some pliers would be a good help.
Yeah, you need wire cutters and pliers.
And if you're coming in and that food is not all eaten and we're feeding daily, we should remove it and replace it?
Daily you don't need to do it,
right?
But if it's fly blown or off, you need to remove it. Don't just throw it on the ground, get rid of it and put it in a bin or a compost. Like compost bin's your best option because then you're feeding your worms and everything else.
You don't want to be going into an area daily.
Yeah, don't go daily.
You're going to be scaring off anything that's there.
Okay. So how often would you do it?
Probably once every, depends on the area. If it's a very well-used area, I'd probably say every 3 to 4 days. If it's a very low traffic animal area, maybe once a week.
Okay.
It really depends on what, if you're just feeding nothing but roos, you might want to do that every day, yes. But your things like your possums and your gliders, it's going to be every 3 to 4 days if you've got a high turnover.
They may not even find it the first 2 days.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
At the end of the day, they're not going to recognise this as food at first. No. So even though I've been doing 3 weeks in Walgett, when I first put these out, they're untouched. The second time I went out, it's like gone. Then I went out 3 days later, put it in, gone again. And then it's just like, ever since then, they're just like, food!
Yeah, right.
But you got to look for, well, the way I do it is I look for signs of activity. I look for glider poo, possum poo, I look for scratches on the tree, that kind of stuff. Because even when you've got that activity, you're not necessarily going to have them eating that straight away because they just don't recognise it.
And it smells like humans.
Yeah. And you need that smell of humans to go away.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yep.
And like plastic.
Cool.
Yeah.
Sorry?
And like plastic and
That's bamboo,
wire.
so-
This is bamboo.
Yeah, but just the other stuff, yeah.
The other, I mean, if you can't get them, I've been using these, but the problem I found is they actually eat the balls. These are bamboo as well. But if you think about it, in nature they're going to eat bark.
Yeah.
So and it's biodegradable. So worst case scenario, if the rain kills it or it gets eaten, it's just disintegrating into bark essentially.
You just need a lot of them to replace it.
Yeah, I just keep replacing the one because when I had no money to start with, so I was using these. I'd come along and they'd eaten the fruit and the bowl. It's like, well, at least they like it.
The wire! Still got the wire!
Yeah, the wire's still there, but the bowl's gone. Like, okay.
And with the bamboo, because obviously it's still coated in something, do you recommend putting them in shady areas just in case? There's something we don't know what's... Obviously they're human
that's the thing,
grade.
Yeah,
for food, but
all food should only be up in shady areas anyway, because if the sun gets to it, it's just going to perish.
Yeah.
Always shady. Yeah. And that's what I keep saying it over and over. It's finding environments that are burnt at an edge.
Yeah.
So you might have a line where the fire went to, and then you've got remaining trees, a few remaining trees, but it's not on the road. Or in totally burnt out areas, I'm still finding, even in places where it got cremated, I'm finding tiny little pockets of green.
Yeah.
So I don't know how or why, but
crazy,
these tiny little pockets of green have survived.
So we need to go in and find it.
Yeah.
The pockets
There is a
of
great website called it's a New South Wales government website. It's called Seed, GeoSeed. I can send a link to you, and they've done aerial imagery,
Oh, great.
and it's got overlaying maps showing cremated areas, green areas, partially burnt areas.
Amazing.
And this is completely recently updated.
It's very recent.
That's amazing.
You still need to ground truth, but that's the best information we have right now, and it's going to give you an idea.
Yes.
Yeah.
You'd be like, okay, that looks like a green patch. I'll go visit that patch.
Okay.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And where things are starting to come back now, where we're starting to see some green, do you?
Depends on the species that's coming back.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you've got nothing but lomandras growing in the undergrowth, nothing's going to eat it.
Yeah.
So that's not going to count as food.
That's happening in Hartley. We've got a lot of Lamandra coming back
Yeah.
and nothing else.
And it seems to me
Everything's scared off.
that even
I said
that
everything's a bit scared off.
The other thing you got to worry about is your browsers and your rabbits are a major issue, but rabbits, roos, deers, goats, and pigs, they're just going to because they're starving. Anything that grows, they're just going to rip it out and eat it before it grows.
Yeah.
So unless everything's growing at a rate higher than the rate of them eating it, you're going to have to keep feeding. Yeah. Sure. Any questions on this stuff?
No, that's good. Thank
Cool.
you very much.
Just on water.
We're about to come to water.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Can we finish food and then we'll go to
Yeah,
water? So that's your sugar glider, feathertail glider, squirrel glider, and your yellow-bellied glider. And there's some question at the moment about your brushies and your common ringtails. We all know that they eat fruit, but at the moment National Parks wants to separate them out as a leaf-eating species, and I'm like, well, we all know they also eat nectar and we eat fruit.
Yeah.
So I'm going to leave that up to you guys to make a decision on that one. I'm putting those commons with those gliders, but I am doing a separate station anyway for your greater gliders, which we're using either leaves or rabbit pellets. That was, I don't know the science behind that, but that was recommended by the head of University of Sydney's wildlife veterinarian for the greater gliders, because he did the autopsies on the ones that came out of Canimbula that died.
Yeah.
He's saying, given we have no leaves, this is our best option. Let's do this for now and see what happens.
Yeah.
That science may change, so we've got to always make sure that we can be adaptable based on what we're learning, because everything we're doing right now, we've never done it before.
That's right.
We're learning as we go, and that's why it's constantly changing, and we're trying to do the best we can.
Yeah. What do you think for possums?
Which type of possums? Oh, the rabbit. That's what I'm saying. So the rabbit pellets for those guys, or some of your starchy veggies. So you chop these up nice and small for them, because they're obviously big ones, like they can't get into them.
Yeah.
Not too small.
Not too small. Not like, don't dice them. What's the size? What's the word for in between?
Guys.
Medium
So like
chop.
Medium chop.
Like a 20-cent piece.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Smaller than a 20-cent piece.
Yeah. Some of your starchy veggies you can give them, but it must be up a tree.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah? Cool. Starchy veggies with a mix of rabbit pellets. That's fine. They're going to love it. So at the end of the day, I don't really care if they want to separate. I'm just going to have a glider station and a greater glider / common ringtail /
They're going to eat what they want to eat.
They're going to choose what they want to eat, but I would put them in separate trees.
Put it this way, they're not going to go up there and say, no, that's not my food tray. If they see the food and they like it.
We're trying to.
The other side of the coin is I saw a video the other day, I don't know if you guys saw it, where someone's put all the foods together on the ground, and they've got fauna cameras taking photos, and they've got macropod wallabies and wombats headbutting each other trying to get to food. One, spread a disease but across species. You don't want that. Two, you don't want them they're stressed enough as it is. You don't want them fighting with each other to try and eat the food. Separate it. Even on that note with the macropod stuff, do small piles and separate the piles. So, because you're always going to have dominant males and less dominant ones. So if you do lots of little piles everywhere, at least they can all get some food.
Yeah, it's a way of getting your own animals.
I know I keep talking about the burnt areas. Where we're on ash, is that going to affect them if we just put it on the ground, or do we need to be putting it on trays or something?
Oh, look, less plastic in nature's better.
Yeah.
Honestly,
We've been using
sorry?
At the moment, we've been using the aluminium barbecue trays. No, they're not good for the environment. We're keeping an eye on
On top of that, they could start a fire.
Yeah, right, okay.
Like, it's like a magnifying glass.
Heat. And they send the food putrid within like a day, not even.
It bakes it, it heats it up. Look, in all honesty, I'm putting it on, if I've got unburnt ground, I'm putting it on the ground. They're used to eating things off the ground. We don't know we don't know what's in that ash.
I know, that's what I'm worried about.
I mean, if you could get a whole bunch of like bark natural trays, like paper bark or bigger sheets of your, so grey gums, you can't see it right now, but they shed in sheets. They naturally shed in sheets. So if you go to an area where there's a shedding of it, you just pull them off and it's like having a tray. We're going to use them for reptiles.
You can get paper bark from nurseries too.
Maybe, but at the end of the day, I don't want you killing nature to save nature. So make sure it's only from a go to an area where it's naturally occurring. Like go to one of the council reserves at the top. Yeah, and Angophora shed bark. The apples. Everyone know your smoothbark apple? The pinky red one. They shed. Your spotted gum shed. Grey gum shed.
Just bark.
Just go for bark that comes off in thick sheets, and just get it when it's any species at the moment is shedding.
Yeah.
So just grab them off and keep them and use them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So yeah, separate trees. So they can be like a tree here and a tree here. That's totally fine. But separate trees for those stations.
Yes.
And for your bird. So you might have 3 trees for those arboreal things. Reptiles. You're going to use the insect stuff. You're literally going to put 3 or 4 scoops in a bowl, add the water, mix it round, and you're going to put it on bark, and then it either has to be under a rock or under a log. Or your Jackie Dragons, your geckos, your skinks, all those sorts of things. It doesn't have to be this one, it can be any of the insect ones. Just don't do mealworm because it doesn't have enough protein. You need to feed the mealworms to give them protein. It's really weird. You've got to feed the food that you feed protein. It's really weird.
So you said on the ground, on bark, under a rock.
On bark, and then put a rock over the top or a log over the top so that other animals aren't eating it.
Can I clarify something here? Just because I've got a question. I heard that with the reptiles, as long as you're obviously tucking it away in smaller areas, you can get tiny chopped veggies.
Oh yeah, you can put tiny little veggies, but stick it
but
under.
It has to be like
under stuff so that the root can't stick its head under there and eat it.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
like a real small gapped area. You can put it there.
So most natural rocky and look for snakes, look for spiders. I don't want you guys bitten. That's the other thing. If you lift a log or a rock, lift it away from you and have gloves on. So that if there is a snake under there, like if you've got, that's my rock, I'm going to lift it this way. So that if there is a snake in it, it's going to hit that, not your leg.
Yeah.
And they're going to be more likely to be under what logs you can find because they've lost a lot of.
Because
the habitat.
On that front, if you guys have farms, you have paddocks, even if you're in a bush block in Blue Mountains, create habitat in your backyard. Put down bits of tin, put down logs, create habitat for your animals again. They're doing amazing. Sorry?
What we've been doing is we've been removing it all.
Yeah, because
we've been removing it all because we're afraid of fires, and we're actually drying the soil out, and we've
what happened in
habitat.
We don't want this to happen. What happened in Victoria after the Victorian fires? They decided to turn every national park into a giant park. So trees and grass. That is not a complete habitat. We need to understand that fire is natural. We do need to burn, but every forest is very, very different. It needs to be burned in different times. If we treat it all the same, we're going to have more fires. Because it means we're turning our rainforest and alpine areas into dry sclerophyll, which are meant to burn every 7 to 8 years. You're creating more fuel by doing that. This is not the only insect one.
No, but just so that we know we've got some sort of a reference.
You want insect meal, essentially, or insect powder. Okay, water stations. As you can see, we're putting them up trees. But as you can see, it's possible to untangle. Like, any of you rock climbers?
Nope.
Yeah. No. But there's no longer any weight in it.
So you can't get it off? No.
Well, can you flick it so it'll
pull it down?
Just flick it, and then the friction will let go.
Okay, so this is the perfect example of what happens if you don't get to it quick enough. You need to have a little bit of water left in it before you bring it down, because you need to have the weight for it to bring it down naturally. So the reason this one, obviously we only put this one up a week ago, and a professional arborist put this one up, not me. But
I'm going to have to pull it over.
The bottom has fallen out, so that means there's no weight left in it. You basically want to come along every probably 4 days to a week to check it. Because it's clear, you can see the water level, and when it's down to about here, you bring it back down so it will. You can always get it off. It's fine. I'll show that in a minute. Just pretend this was still up the tree. All you do is put it between your legs, hold it like that, get your water, pour it in, And then you got to line these slots up with these slots.
These are at Bunnings.
These are at Bunnings. The only one that has them currently is Penrith, not North Penrith, just Penrith. They have 55 currently. Every other store is sold out.
Yeah.
But they're only $8.50 or something like that. I just basically, they won't let you pre-order them. You just got to go in there and get them. They're in the gardening section beside all the dog kennels. Obviously you check that it's on, that's on, and it's going to be, you do a super quick flip over, hold the handle under here and just go, boom. Yep, water fills into here. This will obviously be up the tree already. Yep. And then you get another, so one person, so you need 2 people. One person holds it under here, the other person's pulling on the pulley system, which goes up and over the branch. Yep. And you've got to do it nice and slow. Cannot be quick. If you do it quick, it's just going to go. Yeah. Yep. The other thing you want to look for when you put these up is you don't want a dead straight tree, you want a tree with a slant. Yeah. And if the slant goes that way, you must have it hanging this way. So there's a tree just behind my car. See that slanting tree? That's the grey one. Perfect tree. If it's dead straight, as you're pulling it up, it does this. Bump, 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 bump. The water goes boof, 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 boof. So same thing applies with the food. You want a tree that has branch. Yeah. Yep. Doesn't matter how high the other branch is, just as long as there's a branch to hang off, and that the tree is on a slant, not dead straight. Any questions on that one?
Drawing trees.
Sorry?
It's okay, I'm drawing.
You're drawing a tree? I'm going around and I'm setting these up and GPSing these.
Okay.
If you guys want me to set them up, I can set them up for you. Otherwise, if you want, because it is a little bit difficult, I can show you how to put them up. But you're gonna have to go and get creative with Bunnings, and get Venetian cord, dirty sock and a few rocks. Yeah? And then this is what they call utility cord. This could take up to 140 kilos. I got a 60-meter reel of this for $5.
You don't want it sliding through your hands.
Yep.
No.
Wear gloves, yeah, because you could get rope burn.
Climber, you know. I have a rock.
When I say rocks, I don't mean rocks like that. I mean little tiny rocks. I've been using the white rocks that you put in those really pretty garden ornament things. Yeah. They're like this big. Pebble size, yeah. I just use them because they were cheap at Bunnings. I'm just using whatever I can find that's cheap.
So what are you using those for?
In the dirty sock.
Oh, right.
A weight.
Got some
Or a bit of
gravel.
sand or something, eh?
Yes, sand.
Yeah,
Yep.
wet sand. Chuck it over.
Yep.
Got some gravel.
Anything that's going to give a bit of weight, but you don't want it to be too heavy. But when it goes over, you want it to come back down again. Yeah. Cool. Any questions on that one? Cool. Have you guys all seen the water stations for the ground?
Yeah.
But you've got to make sure you constantly check them because you could start impacting the tree. Yeah. You could accidentally start rebarking the tree. Mm-hmm. Okay, so with these ones, they have to be laying flat to put the water in. And then this is, you turn this up to put the water in, and then you remove that.
Makes sense. Don't have those bits.
Yep. So you need to, this is just to get the water in. Pour it down, it's got to go all the way in. Obviously make it not a slant uphill, it needs to be a flat area. Yeah. Once the water's in, you take that out and you put it upright. Now you need to hear it, it'll bubble.
Yeah.
You'll hear
it really
quickly.
quickly.
You got to do it really quick, yeah. The other thing you need to do to stop wombats tearing them apart is you need to get your heel and dig out a little area for them.
I'm just going to get a picture of that little piece for you.
Yep. Yeah. You're going to make sure it's sitting in there, and then probably the best thing to do is get some rocks around the base to support it, because wombats, I don't know why, but they just want to rampage everything. They just headbutt it because they're bulldozers. Obviously your ocky at the top here and your ocky at the bottom. You can use ropes if you want to use ropes, but as I said, we don't want to kill the trees. Constantly check that you're not rimbucking the tree.
And so oki's better because it's elastic.
Don't watch your eyes. Obviously with ocky straps, they can flick back in your eyes. So I'd wear glasses or just be careful.
Those hooks are evil.
Sorry? They can be really evil.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, I think we've been through everything now, haven't we?
I think so.
Any questions at all?
I was wondering if that opening is big enough for wombats.
Some of them you could have wider entries. The other thing is, but the problem with that is then you need to start getting, what I've been designing is the mesh for a screen door.
Yeah.
It's bendable. On the ones that are like this big, you bend them around the front and then sort of through the middle, and they sort of look like a little hammock.
Yeah.
But the water still comes through them, obviously, and it'll be sort of sitting down in, I don't know about that deep on the big ones.
Or a stick and a rock.
You could use the rock, probably can't, but sticks you can use if you're really stuck. Just do a stick in it, a couple of sticks. But if they're wider, you don't want your skinks and stuff drowning in there, your ants drowning in there. That, these.
Like that.
That's what we've got. I was going to say these ones need to be tipped slower than those, like because I've done them of these, and if you do it too fast, because if you're out and your water's precious and you're not on
Yes, you can spill it.
You can spill it. So
put your hand
over.
over
Do it slowly and it'll hold the pressure.
or put your hand over it and you just
Okay.
Yeah, but these ones I could do that as well.
Yeah.
But I would be digging those in again as well. So
Dig it in and put rocks around the base. Yeah.
So the length of the water in that, it obviously holds for quite a few days, and I've been told to try and put it on the east side of the tree, east facing, so it's cool.
Or south.
Or south.
Just not north facing.
Not north facing. How long could that water stay in there if it's not being used? For instance, like what's your thoughts on that?
You need to check if it's stagnant.
Yeah. Okay.
You can usually tell that by colour and smell.
Yeah.
But if it's in the shade, like they use these, they put them out sometimes for a month in the arid areas.
Okay.
But that's because there's a lot less animals out there and a lot less water, so it's going to last longer.
Yeah.
You worry about like disease transmission with various creatures drinking out of there. That must be a bit of an issue.
No,
Could be, but there's
a pond or a dam.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's
true.
Yeah,
water filters stuff as well.
yeah,
Dilutes, sorry.
yeah.
There's many questions about many things we're doing. We do not know the outcomes. We're doing the best we can.
It's just something that we've never had to deal with before.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it certainly is
Cool.
unprecedented, isn't it?
Okay.
Yep.
All done with this?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.